The night was heavy with summer air, thick and unmoving, as if even the wind in Dixon, Kentucky had given up. Crickets droned in the distance, and a streetlight buzzed outside the Slaton house, casting a soft orange glow through the thin curtains. Inside, Amy and Tammy sat shoulder to shoulder on their worn-out couch, a sagging, faded piece of furniture that had seen more laughter, tears, and late-night takeout than either of them could count. The TV flickered in front of them, but neither sister was really watching. They were both staring at their own reflections in the black screen between commercials, seeing not themselves, but two lives that had started to shrink under the weight of disappointment and exhaustion. Empty soda cans lined the coffee table, the remains of yet another long day that felt like all the ones before it. The air smelled faintly of fried food, old fabric, and something unspoken, the kind of sadness that quietly fills a room and refuses to leave. For a long while, neither said anything. Amy tapped her fingers on the armrest, her mind spinning, while Tammy stared into the dim glow of the TV, her breathing uneven. They had run out of small talk months ago. Everything left to say was heavy, everything left to feel hurt. Finally, Amy broke the silence. Her voice was soft but certain, cutting through the hum of the night. "Tammy," she said, barely above a whisper, "we can't keep living like this." Tammy didn't answer right away. Her chest rose and fell slowly, and when she finally turned her head, her eyes looked red and tired. "I know," she murmured, "but what else is there for us, Amy? People already gave up on me, a long time ago." Amy swallowed hard. For a moment, she thought of all the nights she'd tried to talk herself into believing things would get better, that someday, somehow, they'd both have the strength to change, but that hope had been buried under years of fast food wrappers and broken promises. Still, she looked at her sister and shook her head. "Not me," she said, "not ever." Those 3 words hung in the air like a vow. Later that night, long after Tammy had gone to bed, Amy sat in front of her old computer, the one that took forever to start and made a sound like it was struggling to breathe. The dim light of the monitor illuminated her face as she stared at the blinking cursor. Her hands trembled slightly. She didn't have a plan. Not really. All she had was a feeling, a desperate pull inside her chest that said something had to change. And it had to change now. Without thinking too hard, she began typing. The words poured out faster than she expected. Messy, emotional, honest. "We want to live," she wrote. "We want to see the world before it's too late. We want a chance." She didn't edit it or read it twice. She just pressed send. A short email, fired off to a general contact address for TLC, a network she'd watched for years. She didn't really believe anyone would see it, but somehow, that little act, that one impulsive click, sent a ripple through both of their lives that would never stop. Weeks passed. Life went on. They woke up, watched TV, ordered food, argued, laughed a little, cried a lot. Nothing seemed different until the phone rang one afternoon while Amy was folding laundry. "Hello," she said, distracted. A woman's cheerful voice came through the speaker. "Hi, is this Amy Slaton? I'm calling from TLC." Amy froze. "Wait, what?" The woman laughed lightly, sensing the shock in Amy's voice. "We got your message," she said. "We'd love to talk to you and your sister. Your story really touched us." For a long second, Amy couldn't breathe. She set the laundry aside, her hands shaking. When she hung up, she ran to Tammy's room, bursting through the door. "Tammy, they called us." "TLC called." Tammy blinked in confusion. "TLC, like the TLC." Amy nodded so hard her hair bounced. "They want to meet us. They said they read my email and they think our story's important." But Tammy's excitement faded as quickly as it came. She frowned, staring at her blanket. "I don't want strangers coming in here filming me like some kind of freak show," she muttered. "You think I want people seeing me like this? Seeing how bad it's gotten?" Amy sat beside her, gripping her hand. "Maybe if they see us, they'll understand," she said softly. "Maybe someone out there needs to see it. Maybe it could help." Tammy looked away, her throat tightening. She wanted to believe that. She really did. But after years of judgment and cruel comments online, believing in anything good felt dangerous. Still, Amy's eyes, bright, determined, reminded her of all the times her little sister had refused to give up on her. A few weeks later, a white van pulled up outside their modest house. The crew from TLC stepped out, cameras, microphones, lights, and all. In seconds, the quiet little home that had always felt hidden from the world became the center of attention. The first filming day was chaos. Wires everywhere, strangers moving in and out of rooms, a producer asking them to just be themselves while another adjusted lights over their heads. For the first time in years, Tammy felt exposed, Not just her body, but her whole life. And when they finally did the first win-in, she wanted to disappear. Tammy had gained 8 pounds. Amy had lost 12. The room fell silent. Chris tried to lighten the mood with a joke, but the air was too tense. Their sister Amanda crossed her arms, shaking her head. "You ain't taking this serious, Tam," she snapped. "You keep saying you want to get better, but you ain't doing nothing about it." Tammy's face flushed. "You don't understand what it's like," she shouted back, tears filling her eyes. Amanda fired back, and in seconds the argument spiraled. The cameras caught every word, every tear, every moment of pain that had been building for years. Finally, Tammy stormed off, slamming her bedroom door so hard the walls shook. For a moment, the crew stood frozen, unsure whether to keep filming, but Amy didn't hesitate. She slipped away quietly, grabbed a piece of paper, and wrote a few words in her looping, messy handwriting. Then she knelt by Tammy's door, slid the note underneath, and whispered through the crack, "I mean it, Tam, you're not alone." That simple note, 3 words, would later become the emotional heartbeat of their entire show. Millions of viewers would watch that moment and see not just 2 sisters fighting against obesity, but 2 women clinging to each other against a world that didn't always show kindness. Over the following weeks, the cameras kept rolling. Amy started making changes, small ones, but real ones. She stopped buying soda, switched to water, started grilling chicken instead of frying it. She began keeping a notebook of calories and daily goals, even though it made her anxious to see how far she had to go. She'd sit at the kitchen table each morning, tapping her pen against the page, whispering to herself, "I can do this." Tammy tried to, at first, but the progress was slow, and the cravings were relentless. Some nights, she'd lie awake, feeling like her own body was turning against her. She missed the comfort of food, the way it filled the silence, dulled the pain. One night, when everyone was asleep, Tammy ordered pizza in secret. The delivery guy left it by the door, and she wheeled herself quietly to get it. She ate in silence, tears mixing with the cheese and grease. When she was done, she hid the boxers under her bed, ashamed and full of regret. When Dr. Proctor found out, his patience snapped. "Tammy," he said firmly, "you're running out of time. If you don't make changes soon, your body will give out. I've seen this too many times. You won't survive another year like this." That night, Tammy had a dream, or maybe it was a nightmare. She saw herself trapped inside a dark room, unable to move, her voice echoing as she cried for help, but no one came. She woke up gasping, her chest tight, her body drenched in sweat, and there was Amy, sitting beside her bed, holding a damp towel and brushing her hair back gently. "It's okay," Amy whispered. "You can still turn this around. Sis, you hear me? You still got time?" Tammy nodded weakly, her lip trembling. That night, something shifted. It wasn't dramatic. There was no montage of instant progress, but for the first time in a long time, Tammy wanted to try again, not for the cameras, not even for Dr. Proctor, but for herself, and for the sister who refused to leave her side. From then on, she started taking small steps, literally and emotionally. Amy cheered her on every inch of the way, but behind her own encouragement, Amy was quietly preparing for something she hadn't told anyone yet. She'd been approved for gastric bypass surgery. It was a huge step and a terrifying one. When Tammy found out, it felt like betrayal. "Why didn't you tell me?" she screamed, her voice cracking. "We were supposed to do this together." Amy's eyes filled with tears. "Because I was scared," she said honestly. "I thought if I told you, you'd try to talk me out of it, and I can't keep waiting for us both to be ready. I need to do this now." That argument, raw, messy, emotional, became one of the most powerful scenes of their first season. Millions of viewers saw it and felt the heartbreak of 2 sisters who loved each other fiercely but were being pulled in different directions. Yet even through the anger, the love between them never disappeared. When the day of Amy's surgery arrived, Tammy showed up at the hospital unexpectedly. She had refused to come at first, but guilt and love won out. Sitting in her wheelchair, she clutched a tiny stuffed bear in her lap, the same one Amy had kept on her bed since childhood. She looked up at her sister, her voice trembling. "Remember who's waiting for you when you wake up." Amy smiled through tears, squeezing her hand. "Always." Through tears, squeezing her hand. "Always." When the doors closed behind the hospital staff and Amy was rolled into surgery, Tammy sat there for hours, praying quietly. She hadn't prayed in years, but that night, she did. The surgery was a success. Amy's recovery was slow but steady. When she finally came home, she looked different, lighter, not just physically but emotionally. She smiled more, wore makeup again, and started talking about things she hadn't dared to dream of before, like having a family, traveling, maybe even starting her own YouTube channel about healthy living. But for Tammy, each pound Amy lost seemed to add another weight to her heart. She felt left behind, like the story was moving on without her. The loneliness crept in quietly, sitting beside her on long nights when the cameras weren't there. One evening, Amy came home with something wrapped in a pink ribbon, a small scrapbook. "I made this for you," she said softly. Tammy opened it, her eyes scanning the pages. Inside were photos of their childhood, muddy faces, birthday cakes, inside jokes and snapshots from their show. Their first win. The day Amy left for surgery. Notes and doodles Amy had added in the margins. On the last page, written in her sister's familiar scrawl, were the words, "Our story isn't over. We're still in this together." Tammy's eyes filled with tears. For the first time in a long time, she didn't cry out of anger. She cried because she finally felt hope. Tammy turned the scrapbook pages again and again that night, her fingers tracing the photos as though touching the past could somehow rewrite it. The paper edges were soft and warm from her hands. Every image told a story to little girls running barefoot through Kentucky grass, their mother calling from the porch, the sisters huddled under a blanket, laughing at something only they found funny. Amy's high school graduation, where Tammy cheered the loudest even though her voice cracked. Halfway through, she stared at the last page, at Amy's handwriting, "Our story isn't over." The words pulsed inside her like a heartbeat she had forgotten she had. Maybe Amy was right. Maybe it really wasn't over yet. The next morning, Tammy woke before sunrise. For years, she had avoided mirrors, but something made her look that day. She wheeled herself toward the bathroom, the air cold against her arms. The reflection startled her, not because of what she saw, but because she really looked. Her eyes, though tired, still had color. Her face, though round and flushed, still carried traces of the girl who used to dream of singing on stage. She whispered to the mirror, "I'm still here." Later that week, Dr. Proctor visited with Amy and their family. His tone was gentle but firm. "Tammy," he said, "we've talked about inpatient care before. I think it's time." Tammy's breath caught. The idea of leaving home terrified her. She pictured sterile white walls, nurses she didn't know, long nights alone. "You're saying I can't do it here?" "I'm saying you shouldn't have to do it alone," the doctor replied. "You need 24-hour help. This isn't punishment, Tammy. It's a chance." Amy reached over, squeezing her sister's hand. "I'll come see you every weekend. I promise." Tammy didn't answer right away. Her mind flashed through memories, the fights, the laughter. The nights Amy stayed up to help her breathe when she couldn't. Leaving felt like failure, but staying felt like giving up. That night, she prayed again, quietly, awkwardly. "God," she whispered, "I don't know if you listen to people like me anymore, but if you do, please, help me try." The following week, the van from the facility arrived. The driver waited by the porch while Amy helped Tammy pack a few belongings, comfortable clothes, a photo of the family, and the pink ribbon scrapbook. Every item they put in the bag felt like a small goodbye. When the moment came to leave, Amy's voice broke. "You got this, sis." Tammy nodded, blinking back tears. "Don't make me cry, Amy. I'm trying to be strong here." Amy laughed through her sobs. "You're the strongest person I know." The van door closed with a soft thud, and for a moment, the only sound was the cicadas again. Just like that first night months earlier, as the vehicle rolled away, Amy stood on the porch, her arms wrapped around herself. The cameras caught her whisper, barely audible. "You can do this, sis." Inside the van, Tammy watched her sister grow smaller through the window. For a long time she didn't move, didn't speak. Then she looked down at the scrapbook on her lap, opened it to the last page, and smiled through her tears. The first days at the facility were rough. Everything was new, strict meal plans, physical therapy sessions, group counseling. Tammy felt exposed, like everyone could see her weakest parts. The first night she lay in the unfamiliar bed, listening to the rhythmic beeping of a distant monitor, and thought, "I can't do this." But the next morning, a nurse named Cheryl knocked on her door. "You up for trying the walker today?" she asked with a warm smile. Tammy hesitated, then nodded. "I guess." The hallway smelled faintly of disinfectant and coffee. Cheryl positioned the walker in front of her. "We'll go slow, one step at a time." Tammy's hands gripped the handles. Her arms shook. Her heart pounded so loud she could hear it in her ears. She lifted one foot, then the other, just a few inches. Sweat rolled down her back. She wanted to quit, but Cheryl kept speaking softly. "That's it. You're doing it? Keep breathing." When she finally sat back down, Tears streamed down her face, not from pain, but from the shock of realizing she had moved, maybe only a few steps, but they were hers. That evening, Amy called. Her voice came through cheerful and shaky at the same time. "How was your first day?" Tammy laughed bitterly. "Horrible." Amy chuckled. "That's good. Horrible means you're doing something hard. You know what Dr. Proctor says, no pain, no progress." "Yeah, well," Tammy said, "tell him, I hate him." They both burst into laughter, the kind that feels like relief over the following months. Amy visited every weekend, just like she promised. She'd bring flowers or silly magazines. Sometimes a new shade of lipstick for Tammy so you can look cute when you walk out of here. The staff loved her. She'd chat with nurses, help rearrange the room, even bring homemade decorations for holidays. Every visit ended the same way. Sitting together outside under the maple tree, talking about the future. Amy would talk about her recovery, her hopes of having a baby, her dreams of maybe moving into a bigger house with windows that let the morning light pour in. Tammy would listen, smiling, then quietly share her own wish to walk into that house someday without help. One afternoon, when Amy arrived, she found Tammy in physical therapy. The therapist nodded toward her. "She's doing something new today. Watch." Tammy stood, gripping the walker, her face red with effort. She took one shaky step, then another. Amy gasped. "Oh my God, Tammy." Tammy grinned through the tears. "5 steps, Amy. I took 5 steps today." Amy covered her mouth, crying openly. "You did it. I'm so proud of you." That moment, just 5 steps, became a turning point. For Tammy, it wasn't just physical progress. It was proof that she could fight back against years of despair. For Amy, it was confirmation that her sister's spirit was stronger than anyone had ever given her credit for. In the following weeks, Tammy's determination grew. She started journaling every day, writing about her small victories, standing longer, breathing easier, eating salad without drowning it in dressing. The staff noticed, her family noticed, even fans online, who had once doubted her, began leaving comments of encouragement when updates aired on TV. But progress never came easy. There were days when she felt like giving up, when her legs ached so badly she cried herself to sleep, when the cravings returned, when she missed home so much her chest physically hurt. On those days, she'd open Amy's scrapbook again, reading the words over and over. "We're still in this together." Back home, Amy's life was also changing fast. The weight loss opened doors she'd never expected. She felt confident, energetic, almost reborn, but success brought its own kind of loneliness. Without Tammy there, the house felt too quiet. She'd catch herself turning to share a joke or a thought, only to remember her sister wasn't in the next room anymore, so she threw herself into visiting, filming, and preparing for motherhood. The day she learned she was pregnant, she called Tammy first. "Guess what?" Amy said, barely able to contain herself. "What, you finally learned to cook without burning something?" Tammy teased. Amy laughed. "Close. I'm having a baby, Tam." For a moment, there was silence. Then Tammy squealed so loud that a nurse poked her head into the room to check what was happening. "Amy, that's amazing. Oh my God, you're gonna be such a good mom." Amy wiped away a tear. "You really think so?" "I know so," Tammy said firmly. "You took care of me my whole life. Taking care of a baby? That's easy compared to me." They both laughed until they couldn't breathe. But behind Tammy's laughter was a quiet ache, happiness for Amy mixed with a longing she didn't dare name. Months passed. Tammy kept fighting, Amy kept visiting, and the cameras kept capturing it all. The sisters became symbols of raw honesty to women refusing to give up on each other. One evening, after a long therapy session, Tammy sat by her window watching the sunset bleed orange and pink across the horizon. She thought about everything, the past, the future, all the people who had doubted them. She picked up her phone and texted Amy. "Thank you for never leaving me behind." Amy replied almost instantly. "Never ever. We started this together. We'll finish it together." That night Tammy dreamed again, but this time, not of being trapped. In her dream, she was walking down a long country road, the air warm, the grass tall on either side. Amy was ahead of her, laughing, turning back to wave. Tammy took one more step, then another, until the sound of their laughter echoed across the fields. When she woke up, she whispered, 5 steps, and counting. Weeks turned into months, and the seasons changed quietly outside the rehab facility's walls. Leaves that had once been green turned gold, then brown, and finally fell away. Tammy marked time not by calendars but by milestones. First 10 steps, then 20, then walking across the therapy room without help. Each victory came with sweat, tears, and sometimes anger, but she began to crave the feeling of accomplishment more than she once craved food. Her body was changing, yes, but what truly transformed was her spirit. She started laughing more. The staff noticed that she'd begun to hum during morning stretches, sometimes even cracking jokes with the nurses. "You better watch out," she'd tell them. "One of these days I'll be chasing you down the hall." Every Sunday, Amy showed up right on schedule. Sometimes she'd bring her husband and their baby. Other times she came alone, but always with the same bright smile and a bag full of stories. The moment Tammy heard her sister's footsteps echoing down the hallway, her heart lifted. One afternoon, Amy arrived with her newborn son bundled in a soft blue blanket. "Tam, meet Gage," she said, her voice trembling with joy. Tammy's eyes filled instantly. "Oh, Amy," she whispered, "he's perfect." Amy placed the baby gently in her sister's arms. Tammy held him like he was made of glass, afraid to even breathe too hard. Gage's tiny fingers wrapped around one of hers, and something broke open inside her. "He's so small," Tammy said. "It's like holding hope." Amy smiled. "That's what he is." Hope. From that day on, every visit included Gage, his giggles echoing through the halls, his tiny hands reaching for Tammy's hair. The nurses adored him, even on days when Tammy felt worn out or sore. The sight of that baby made her sit up straighter and smile wider. During one particularly hard session, when Tammy struggled to finish her walk, she whispered to herself, "Do it for Gage." And somehow, she did. Time blurred again. Amy's life outside the facility was moving fast. Motherhood, filming, interviews, social media. She tried to balance it all, but she never missed a visit. Some nights she'd fall asleep on the couch, exhausted from the drive, a baby bottle on one side and her phone on the other. But she'd wake up the next morning determined to keep going, because Tammy needed her, and, in truth, Amy needed Tammy too. The show's new season captured both their journeys. Amy navigating early motherhood, Tammy fighting her way toward independence. The fans who once criticized began cheering instead. Messages poured in from people all over the world, strangers saying, "You gave me hope," or "I started walking today because of you." Tammy read those messages during quiet evenings in her room. Sometimes she smiled, sometimes she cried. She never thought her struggle could mean anything to anyone else, but now, it did. It mattered. She mattered. After nearly a year, the doctors called Amy with the update she'd been praying for. Tammy was finally healthy, enough to leave the facility. Amy burst into tears on the phone. "She's coming home." "Yes," the nurse said, smiling through her voice. "She's ready." When the day came, Amy decorated the front porch with balloons and a big hand-painted sign that read "Welcome Home, Tammy." Chris grilled burgers in the yard. Amanda baked a cake, and even their mom showed up, teary-eyed and proud. The van pulled up, and everyone ran outside. The door opened slowly, and then there she was, Tammy, standing tall with her walker, her face glowing in the afternoon light. For a heartbeat, the world seemed to stop. Amy ran forward, tears already streaming. "You did it, Tam. You really did it." Tammy laughed, her own eyes wet. "Told you I'd make it." They hugged for a long time, the kind of hug that says everything words can't. Cameras rolled, family clapped, neighbors peeked from their porches, but for Amy and Tammy, it felt like no one else existed. Later that evening, when the crowd thinned and the sun dipped low, the sisters sat together on the porch, just like they had on that humid night so long ago. Only now, everything felt different. The air still buzzed with cicadas, but the silence between them was no longer heavy. It was peaceful. Amy glanced over. "Do you ever think about that first night, when we said we couldn't keep living like that?" Tammy smiled softly. "Every day feels like another lifetime." Amy leaned back in her chair. "You know, when I sent that email to TLC, I thought I was saving us, but maybe we saved each other." Tammy nodded, her voice quiet. "Yeah, we did." Inside the house, Gage began to cry. Amy stood to go inside, but Tammy raised a hand. "Let me." Amy froze. "Are you sure?" Tammy smiled, steadying herself on her walker. "Yeah, I want to." Slowly, carefully, she walked toward the door. Each step was deliberate, measured, not perfect, but strong. When she reached the doorway, she turned back, grinning. 5 steps. Remember? Amy laughed through her tears. 5 steps that changed everything. Tammy disappeared inside, her laughter echoing behind her. For a moment, Amy stood on the porch, looking up at the fading sky. She felt the weight of every year, every heartbreak, every victory, and realized this was just another beginning. In the months that followed, the sisters' bond only deepened. Amy adjusted to motherhood, balancing filming and late-night feedings. Tammy focused on maintaining her health, doing home exercises, and learning to cook healthy meals. They filmed together again, but now there was a new tone, not tragedy, but triumph. When the cameras asked Tammy what kept her going, she smiled directly into the lens. "Love," she said simply. "My sister never gave up on me, so I stopped giving up on myself." The footage aired during the season finale. Viewers watched as the sisters cooked dinner together, laughing over burnt chicken, chasing Gage around the living room, and teasing each other the way only siblings can. The last scene showed them walking slowly, side by side, down the same country road where they'd once dreamed of being free. As the credits rolled, Amy's voice played in the background, soft and full of gratitude. "It was never about losing weight," she said. "It was about finding life again. And no matter what happens, we'll always be sisters first." When the cameras finally turned off, they stayed sitting outside a little longer. The night was quiet except for the hum of distant crickets. Amy reached over, squeezing Tammy's hand. "No matter what," she said, smiling, "we're sisters first, always." Tammy looked at her, her eyes glistening. "Forever, sis, no matter what." The wind moved through the trees, carrying their laughter into the dark. Two sisters who had once been lost were now found, not by fame, not by miracle,